All right, folks, welcome back to the Degenerate NFL podcast. Making his first appearance since we brought this back after they're finally letting him out of the basement. Jake is on with us tonight. We might see Zach, who, if you've been following the show, has also been back here on the channel, but we'll see if we get him. Don't want to talk too ill of his Dolphins without him, but if we must, we must, Jake. But no, this should be a good fun show here. We're talking about the AFC East this time. We're officially halfway through our previews of each division in the NFL before the season kicks off, before we can jump into reacting to the actual football, right? There is preseason going on right now. I personally have checked out now that my Steelers are done.
Yes,
Jake, I know
same.
you're same boat for
I
you,
have
covering
been
the
ready
Steelers.
to.
Yeah.
I'm done watching Mason Rudolph throw interceptions.
Yeah, yeah. At least Skylar Thompson was kind of
I'm
fun.
ready
Shout
to.
out, also a former Dolphin. So there's that.
Skyward, yeah, that's it. I'll save that conversation for a different time.
Yeah,
but
we'll talk about him at some point in the series. But at least there's that. But no, preseason is kind of over for me. At least I'm sure I'll check out some of the tape from these last couple of games. See who's going to make some of these teams. But we're going to focus on the AFC East tonight. And as we always do, we're going to start off with the worst team, that being the New England Patriots, at least from last year. Probably not going to be the worst team this year. Just spoiler alert for how I feel about this team. But I think that they have a chance to definitely get closer to being a competitive team, certainly more than they were last year, when it just kind of all really fell apart even harder than it already had. So let's get into some of the changes here. We always start off with the coaching staff changes and a lot to talk about here. So obviously with how things went last year, it was pretty apparent, I think, by the end of the season that Gerard Mayo was not going to last through his first season, at least unscathed, right? So he does get fired here. They do bring in Mike Vrabel to replace him as a head coach. Least surprising hire of the offseason, I would say, pretty comfortably.
yeah,
Kind of penciled in once it was known that the Patriots were going to have to move on from Mayo after his failure as a head coach there. They fire Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, as well, along with him. They hire, let me know if you've ever heard this name before, Jake. Josh McDaniels is the offensive coordinator here.
chill went down my spine.
Yeah, Jake is a
as I
Raiders
read
fan.
his name.
Yeah. Jake is a Raiders fan, so unfortunately, he's not probably a big fan of Josh McDaniels. Patriots fans probably
he's
are.
a great offensive coordinator.
Exactly. So
if you don't ask him to do more than that, he'll be good. So I do like him for the Patriots.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll talk about him and what he brings in a little bit here. But they also, of course, fired the defensive coordinator, who at the time was DeMarcus Covington, and they hired Terrell Williams, formerly the Lions' defensive line coach, who did coach with Vrabel in Tennessee. And if you guys caught this show at all, kind of going into the offseason when we were talking about it a little bit, we were talking about like head coach openings potentially, and who would go where. I did call that his DC, if he got hired with Vrabel, would be Terrell Williams. I have to throw that out there. Good guess on my part. It was mostly just based on looking at the fact that he was, I think, the assistant head coach with the Titans. So like that would make sense that you bring him in. But he is here. So that is his staff that he put together. Take a second to talk about it a little bit, just because we all know if you're an NFL fan, especially a Titans fan or fan of that AFC South era, whenever the Titans were kind of really running things for a few years there, we know kind of what Vrabel's about. He is very much that tough, like hard-nosed, tough, defensive-minded guy that brings a lot of professionalism to this group that they didn't really get from Mayo last year, right? That you could tell that this was not a very buttoned-up unit, which was surprising to a lot, and I think even myself, because this was the heir apparent to Belichick. You kind of expected there to be some level of just kind of keeping things going and keeping things on track, and it really all fell apart pretty quickly for this team.
Yeah, they're definitely one of the more interesting teams I'm excited to watch this year. I think honestly, like on the entire week one slate, I think the matchup I'm probably most excited for, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Raiders fan, but is the Raiders and the Patriots, just because I think these are two teams that could have improved the most this offseason. So yeah, super excited to see how they look once the season gets started.
It's going to be interesting because Vrabel, we know he was a guy who got a lot out of his guys in Tennessee. They never felt like this team that had a top 10 talent, right? Like they didn't have these huge superstars other than Derrick Henry, really, for a long time. They got a lot out of Ryan Tannehill, a quarterback who,
Yeah.
respect Ryan Tannehill. Drake May's got a little bit more, I think, in the tank to him, talent-wise, than Ryan Tannehill did. So I know Vrabel should be able to work with him. I think this team in general, and we're going to get into the moves they made on offense and defense and kind of talk more about what their ceiling and floor might be. But before we get into that specifically, I just want to throw out there that this certainly feels like a team that, if nothing else, is going to be a much harder out this year, right? Like that's kind of, I think, the goal for this organization is get back to being a team that people can't just walk over, right? Because that's really kind of how it's been the past couple of years for the Patriots. And it's, as much as I'm sure there's very cathartic for the rest of these teams in this division, it does just kind of feel weird when the Patriots are good at this point. We got so used to it that it is actually a little bit off-putting when they're this bad. So I do think they're going to be at least a little bit better here. Let's talk about the offensive moves, Jake, because there's not as many, I would say, like especially big ones made here, but some maybe important ones that should help this group be at least more actually able to run an offense of any kind, let alone a good one, right? Because this last year it was very tough because this offensive line in particular was just so, I would say useless is kind of a strong word, but basically that. I mean, it was very hard for Drake May or Jacoby Brissett before May stepped in there to really get much of anything going. So let's talk about kind of what they did there. So they do lose Jacoby Brissett, just mentioned him at quarterback. Also, Joe Milton ends up going to the Cowboys in a trade, which is kind of funny to me because there was that for a while. The Steelers, as a fan of them, were kind of in that conversation for a bit, as maybe interested in him and this whole other thing. And then it's up a Cowboy, which somehow feels right because like Jerry saw that dude's arm was probably like, give me that guy, give me him. So that's probably why he ends up as a Cowboy. They lose David Andrews, who I believe is either retired or definitely at least not playing at this point for anyone currently. Chuks Okorafor also heads out the door as a backup offensive lineman. They re-sign tight end Austin Hooper, and then they go out in free agency. They sign quarterback Josh Dobbs to be the new backup. Makes sense. He's a veteran at this point, played a decent amount for, I know, the Vikings a little bit ago. Stephon Diggs brought in to hopefully be this team's receiver one for at least now. We'll see how that goes coming off of the knee injury. Morgan Moses, who at this point is basically like, you need a right tackle who won't embarrass himself, sign Morgan Moses and you'll be good. So you love that. Mac Hollins joins this receiver room as well as kind of that big body type that could hopefully offer them a little bit of something. And then the draft is really where they kind of made hay. So they get Will Campbell with the 4th pick. We'll talk about his fit as a left tackle in the NFL for this team. Travion Henderson, the explosive running back out of Ohio State. Kyle Williams, the Washington State wide receiver. They got a lot of late hype, and I'll admit he was very close to cracking my top 50 by the end of it. I'm really a big fan of what he can do. And then Jared Wilson, the center/guard now, but especially center from Georgia in the 3rd round as well. So, Jake, I'll throw it over to you first here. Do you think, based on these moves, losses, gains, all that this offense has a chance to at least be respectable in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, they've come a long way. I would even venture to say it could be more than respectable. I think it could. I won't call it dangerous yet, but I think they did a good job of, given their situation, adding as much around a young quarterback as you can. I like their offensive line moves. Morgan Moses isn't going to embarrass himself, as you said. I like the pick of Jared Wilson, Will Campbell, obviously. So they got some help to what really could have been, aside from a couple teams like the Bears, maybe one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year. In terms of pass catching, I mean, you get Stephon Diggs. He had his funny little offseason moment, but he immediately he immediately upgrades the receiver room in a big way, even though he's coming off that ACL. I really like the addition of Mac Hollins. There are some receivers in the league that are just going to get you like 400 receiving yards and a couple touchdowns and just be a somewhat reliable target. I think he's a good guy to have in the room. Just adds more reliability there. He's been around the league. He's done it before. They got a good look at him in the division last year with the Bills. So I think that's a nice underrated signing. I think Drake May could have some success with him there. Obviously, love Henderson. He had that fun preseason kick return.
Yes,
and then Kyle Williams, I'm excited to see in this offense. But I mean, when you have a young QB and you have him on as bad of an offense as he was on last year, I think, obviously the two biggest things you can do is get him some blocking, which they needed badly, and get him some competent receivers. And I think they accomplished both those things. So, I do think with May, there might be a few bumps in the road in terms of development here, but just on paper, I mean, this offense should be levels above what it was last year.
Right, and that's kind of where I'm at too. Where like when you're coming from legitimately being maybe the worst unit in the league, especially on the offense, like offensive line specifically, and just offense in general was really rough last year. May did give them a bit of a spark down the stretch for sure, and that's why I think a lot of people are so high on him coming into a second season because obviously very highly regarded, was the third overall pick last year, showed enough flashes behind just again a just useless offensive line in a lot of ways. Like I cannot stress enough that this group was not doing it for Drake May. For him to do what he did last year and be honestly pretty competent as a passer overall, numbers wise especially, it gives you reason to think that if it could just be not a bottom 10 unit in terms of playmakers and offensive line, that they can actually start to build something here and not just struggle along and get to the end of the season, right? So definitely excited to see how this offensive line comes together. I think at best you're looking at least a top 20-ish unit, which, man, that'd be so much better than last year that it's kind of and I at least think you're not looking at the worst offensive line in the league, which a lot of metrics would tell you the Patriots were last year. I think also I want to talk a little bit about the draft picks because, again, Travion Henderson brings a level of explosiveness to this backfield that they've maybe never really had because a lot of their backs in their history have not been that type of guy that's like the big play threat. It's been more of the like, get me my 4 yards and we'll see what happens from there type of guy. Stevenson's had his moments, but he's a bigger back as well. I think him and Henderson could really form a really good duo there. The Will Campbell pick is interesting to me because I did like Will Campbell a lot, as most people do. I still wonder if at left tackle his ceiling is more than like a fringe Pro Bowler type. And that's honestly good enough for this team. Like they just need someone who can play left tackle. And I think he can. But I do wonder, what his ceiling ultimately is in the NFL with his frame, with the way that he has to play. In the run game, I think he's going to be phenomenal. Like his athleticism, his just the determination to try to kill people out there, which is really what you need to have as an offensive lineman. He's got that in spades. Like there's no question about that with his mentality. But his physical traits, especially against power, against guys who can get an advantage on him because of his lack of length, we're just going to have to see, is that going to be a consistent problem or can he do enough with his athleticism to kind of offset that? So those two guys especially, we'll have to see what they can get out of them this year. Jared Wilson looks to be a starter as a third-round pick. I was surprised he lasted as long as it did solely because he was clearly the best center in the draft to me. Like it was pretty far and away the best one. So for him to last to the third round was very interesting to me, but their gain potentially, right, as a guy who might start right away.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of excitement around those two, but both of them being on the left side to start the year does worry me a little bit.
Rookies on the same side can be tough.
Yeah. Especially when you have a quarterback who's played 10, 12 games, maybe. I forget exactly what week he came in last year. So there could be some bumps in the road there, but that's kind of to be expected.
Yeah, especially early on. Yeah.
You have to target the draft to improve pretty much almost every area of your offense because it was that bad last year. I'm excited to watch those two, but that side of the line is as inexperienced as it gets. So that'll be interesting to watch as the season starts.
Yeah, and we talked about Stephon Diggs a little bit. I think if he's healthy, which he's practiced all offseason, I think he'll be fine. If he can just be similarly good as he was last year before he went down, I think that's fine for this team. It was so much better than what they had last year. No offense to Pop Douglas by any means, very fun player, but if Kayshon Boutte is your best outside receiver, that's not awesome. Like, no offense to him. Like, maybe want to get a little bit better there. But that's why they also bring in Kyle Williams, who I think, honestly, Stephon Diggs isn't a bad comp for what I think he could be ultimately. Maybe not the heights that Diggs reached as a player, but Diggs himself was a 5th-round pick. It's not like it's impossible for a guy like Kyle Williams to reach that. So very interested to see how they deploy these playmakers and what kind of. We know with McDaniels, like he wants that like. I wonder who's going to play at the slot for this team the majority of the time because you'd imagine it's Douglas, but I know Efton Chisholm's got a lot of hype in the preseason. He's very much a Josh McDaniel slot receiver to say the least. That's all I'll say about that. So we'll see if he can crack the roster, but it should be very fun to watch compared to last year for Patriots fans. Let's get into the defensive moves they made. This is where a lot of the money and a lot of the time was spent for sure with this team, trying to get back to that identity that really has, outside of the Brady situation, has really been the identity of this team for the past almost 30 years. Is really their defense first and foremost. So with the defense, they do lose Devon Godshaw, Jawan Bentley at linebacker, Jonathan Jones, Dietrich Wise, Daniel Equale, all in the interior there. Those last two, Wise especially, I think is the biggest loss there. He's kind of that edge hybrid where he plays a little bit on the edge, but he's really more of an interior defensive lineman body type and skill set. So he's the guy that they're going to definitely have to replace. And I think they did a good job of that. In free agency, they go out and they spend $26 million a year on Milton Williams, who, is that a lot of money for someone who wasn't a true full-time player in Philadelphia? Probably. Is he far better than anything they had, especially as a pass rusher last year? Absolutely. So I think it's probably fair to say that it's going to be an overpay, but maybe not so much of an overpay that anyone remembers in 3 years, right? That's kind of the hope that if him and Barmore, especially because Barmore, you could basically say is an addition to, he played 2 games last year, was not himself. If his health is clear, if he's going to be good to go from that blood clot situation and stuff he had going on, that interior rushing duo is going to be about as good as it gets just on a pass rushing sense. So, you bring him in as well, like we said. You bring in Kairos Tonga to be kind of more of that nose tackle type. Harold Landry, who admittedly, I'm not sure if he's got much left in the tank, but, former Titan, not surprised that he's here. You also bring in Kalen Chase on along the edge. I know, Jake, you're familiar with him, with the Raiders, what he did. They're bringing Robert Spillane, who was a huge pickup to help this linebacker group. He's going to bring a lot of physicality. Maybe the biggest one of all, even more so than Milton Williams, depending on what they get out of him. Carlton Davis joins with Christian Gonzalez to form maybe the best man coverage corner duo in the NFL, like right away. Like those two are just dominant in that stage of the game or that phase of the game in terms of man coverage. So this defense should be much improved. And in the draft, they add Craig Woodson at safety. I don't expect him to play a ton right away. Maybe with Duggar on the outs, maybe he does. But then Josh Farmer and Edge Braden Swinson, who admittedly I was a pretty big fan of and was surprised it lasted that long. Apparently some coaching and some other issues he had dealt with. So we'll see if he can crack the rotation. But this defense overall, way more talent added this offseason and should be in a good position to get back to that top 10-ish level that we've gotten so used to them being.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this unit defensively, I think over half of the starting lineup is probably new faces.
Yep.
I mean, you talk about the cornerback duo you mentioned, that is scary for the rest of the AFC East. I mean, that's arguably the best cornerback duo in the league. It's maybe not the best, but it's surely up there. I really, 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 really like the addition of Robert Spillane.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
It has been an absolute. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to watch him play. I mean, he's a guy that there were times watching the Raiders last year where defensively they just would be lost, but he is the exact type of middle linebacker quarterback of the defense that you need. Just plays smart, plays the run well, plays the pass well. He got a lot of money from the Patriots, but I think it's deserved. He's probably, aside from Carlton Davis, probably my favorite addition to this defense. One guy I do want to shout out, another former Raider, Kalavan Chasen. Sneaky good year in Las Vegas last year. They picked him up since all of the Raiders edge rushers got injured in the first month of the season, but he had a chance to start some games. Had 5 sacks last year. I don't think he had. I don't have the stats put up, but I don't think he had more than 2 or 3 before that. So he had a career year for his standards. Yeah, he got a chance to start some games, played well. Against the run, he's not going to bring a lot. He does not tackle the best against the run. He misses a handful, but I think he could be one of the sneaky best additions. I mean, he looked really good over the second half of last year. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard not to be impressed. I mean, in defensive line, you get Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Chasen, Spillane's a huge addition, Carlton Davis. It's really, really hard to be upset with those additions, as well as some of their draft picks. I mean, I like Farmer, Swinson, you know. Yeah, I mean, I all I really could say about the Patriots offense is I think they did as good as you can building around a QB going into a second year. I mean, he has some sort of defense now. He's not going to have to score 40 points a game to win. He's got a line, well, semblances of a line,
More
semblances
talent
of
than
a
he's
pass
had at
catching
any
grade.
point.
So, yeah, but defensively, I think they made a lot. They spent a lot of money. We'll see if it's turns out to be money well spent, but I think it will be.
When you have as much as they did, it's hard to really blow that much money and it be a problem, right? Like they'll be fine in 2 years regardless if this works out. I think the only question really left with this defense for me, at least like major ones, because you could talk about the secondary outside of the starting corners. Like, what is Jabril Pepper's been really good for them, but he's getting up there. Right now, their listed strong safety is Jalen Hawkins. I don't know about that at this point. Like, Marcus Jones is a good slot corner, I think, when he's healthy, but that's been an issue for him. Also, good special teamer for them. The edge group, man, like Harold Landry just doesn't have it anymore, in my opinion. Like watching some of him last year, like he just doesn't really threaten the corner like he used to. Has no power whatsoever to speak of as a pass rusher. He'll play hard against the run, and I think I think they want him to do that type of stuff. They want what he was doing for Vrabel back in the day. I don't know if they're going to get that out of him. And then right now, Kalen Chasen's listed as the starting outside linebacker, which for that team would be the edge rush position. I feel like if that's going to be the case, they really need that interior duo with Williams and Barber to be dominant. Like, not just like, oh, they're good. It's like, no, they got to get like 140 pressures between the two of them good for that pass rush to be good. Which, like, yeah, maybe, but probably not. It's asking a lot. So we'll see what happens there. But so let's talk about their expectations for 2025 and what we specifically think they should be, because there's a lot of stuff getting thrown out there. Some Patriots fans are like, we're going back to the playoffs. Other people are like, oh, this team's a sneaky like wild card team. I think their expectations should be to have this offensive line and this offense be good enough to get a really truly good look at what Drake May can be. Because what we saw last year is enough for me to think that he could be one of those top 10-ish quarterbacks in the NFL sooner rather than later. But they have to give him enough around him to actually see that and to make sure they can know that for certain. That's where they're really at this point in that process with him. It's why a lot of people didn't want to see him on the field last year. And to his credit, he outplayed what I think he should have been able to do with that group. Can he now elevate the rest of these guys and show that he can take this team to at least a competent level, this year with that offense? That's really the only expectation I think this team should have in 2025.
Yeah, I was one of the people last year that did not want him to step in with that roster.
And I get it. It just we saw what it looked like, but yeah.
I agree, though. I was gonna say I think the only thing that's important this year is Drake May's development. This team could sneak into a wild card spot.
It's possible.
They have talent, but I just think the AFC is too good. I mean,
That's
you're gonna have the Chargers and Broncos will be in there. The Chiefs will be in there if they somehow don't win the division. But you're gonna have at least two AFC West teams fighting for a wild card spot. Probably two AFC North teams. Maybe an AFC South team sneaks up. So it's just gonna be a crowded race. I don't know that this team. Certainly don't think this team is built to win a playoff game. They could be built to get a 6 or 7 seed, but I would forget about that for now and just. As long as Drake May develops well, you could leave this season 6-10 or 6-11, and come out with a positive note. So, yeah, that the main thing is him. As you said, you want to see the offensive line do well, especially that young left side that I mentioned earlier, with a first and third round draft pick from this year's draft. You want to see Kyle Williams have some success. Hopefully, Stephon Diggs after he got that pretty decent contract. But yeah, I think this will be I don't think this will be a good team, but I do think it'll be a fun team, or at least a lot more fun than it was last year, which isn't a high bar to clear, but I do think it'll be fun. Now that Drake May has some weapons, hopefully some blocking, and they actually have some players on the defensive side of the ball and it's not just Christian Gonzalez on that side of the ball. So
yeah, just him just
yeah,
trying
I
his
think
best and somehow
yeah,
succeeding usually.
I think this could be a really fun 7-10 or 8-9 team. But I don't think much more than that.
Right, let's get into that right now with the win total range before we move on to the Jets here. I'm going to start off here. I think the floor of this team it's still pretty low. There's just so much new talent that is unproven, especially that it's very possible that this group doesn't bottom out again, but I think gets closer to the record they had last year than a lot of people were hoping for. I set their floor at 5. I think they are still a better football team regardless of what happens, but the Vrabel effect especially kind of helps with that. And then I'm going to put the ceiling at 8. I don't quite think this is a 9-win team this year. There's just still so many questions about the offense that even if Drake May looks the part even more than he did last year, I don't know if it necessarily leads to points. You could talk me into 9 wins, but in the AFC, it's just really tough, right? It's really really competitive. If you don't have everything buttoned up and you're not like a supremely talented team, it's tough to get more than 8 wins in this conference right now. So I'll stick it at 8 for my ceiling.
Yeah, I would go with 5 for the floor too. I think that's 2 games better than last year, so not a huge improvement. But I think there is enough talent on this team. They should win 5 games. I will go 9 for their ceiling.
I think that's
Um,
fair.
I think they can get 2 wins from the Dolphins. I think they can get a win from the Jets. I think the AFC East plays the NFC South this year,
I think so.
which has some bad teams in there. So I think they can grab some there. This team will not, as I said earlier, they won't win a playoff game or anything like that. But I could see them, if everything goes right, getting a winning record. But that would take everything to go right. I think if I had to bet money, I would bet on them to get 7, 8 wins probably. But yeah, I would go from 5 to 9.
That's probably the right way to go about it. So let's get into the Jets here now. And I'm wearing a Jets hat, not necessarily because the Jets are the team I want to talk about the most, but it's just the hat that I currently have. For those who are wondering about that, you see me wear hats occasionally for teams, and it's really just because they're the ones that I have at the time. But let's talk about the Jets. A lot to talk about with this team too. Mostly bad stuff as far as last year. The Aaron Rodgers experiment certainly did not go well in really any way, and I'm hoping that same thing does not happen to my team this year. But we'll talk about them again, not right now, another time. Let's talk about the coaching staff changes because boy, is there a lot. Anytime you have what happened to them last year, a lot of people lose their jobs, go through jobs, just in general, kind of a whole mess of things going on. Start with Robert Saleh, the head coach, being fired 5 games in the year, which I'll admit probably an overreaction considering they won a whole 3 games
Probably.
the rest of the year under Jeff Ulbrich, who became the interim head coach. So both are out the door, and they bring in the highly touted Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator of the Lions the past few years. I want to stop on this hire for a second because I want to just mention that not only is Aaron Glenn one of the top defensive minds in the league, and that's why he gets this job, and he also comes from that Lions culture that has really developed quickly, and we've seen what they've been able to do over there. He also played for this team as a player, which is very cool. I always love to mention that when that happens. So he does know the Jets very well as being a member of this team. I'm kind of surprised considering he played for this team that he was willing to coach this team, but hopefully it's because he just believes in himself that much that he thinks he can be the guy.
I can change them.
Exactly. It's very much that type of thing. Obviously, Nathaniel Hackett, Todd Downing combo gets out the door here. Oh, my goodness, that was something. An offensive coordinator. And they hire offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand, who I thought was going to be the heir apparent to Ben Johnson in Detroit, but he actually comes over with Aaron Glenn to the Jets here. He was the passing game coordinator for the Lions last year. So love that hire there. And then they bring in the experienced defensive coordinator Steve Wilks, who's really going to just be a guy I think that helps with the defense with Aaron Glenn. He's going to just be another mind in that room. Ton of NFL experience, has head coaching experience. Did not go particularly well, to be fair, but he does have some of that as well. He brings that. I think this is a really strong staff for a Jets team that has really not had a strong staff for a very long time.
Yeah, it's definitely an improvement. I mean, anytime you can get Todd Downing off your coaching staff.
No offense to Todd, but
Yeah, I'm not a big Todd Downing fan, but
Can't imagine.
yeah, I mean, I think a team like the Jets, as much of a circus, I guess would be the right word, as they were last year, where you have an inexperienced head coach and a very experienced quarterback who really wants things done his way.
Yeah.
I think people could have foreseen that going the way it did. I didn't, because I picked them in our gambling podcast to win
You
the
did.
division.
You
Terrible
did.
choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't going to say
Um,
anything, but yeah, that did happen,
no,
unfortunately.
I'll own it. I'll own it.
Yeah. But you weren't alone.
Yeah, I
You certainly
think.
weren't alone.
Yeah, and I mean, I you have to set a new culture, and I think that's what Aaron Glenn is doing. Uh, he kind of talked at the beginning, or Aaron Rodgers mentioned at the beginning of the offseason how he didn't like the way that he was being told he's being released because it was very quick or something. They didn't bring him in, but I just think that's a sign of
I
the
think it's because
fact.
they made him fly in, I think is what it was, if I remember that.
Yeah, it was something like that for like
I'm like,
a
okay.
5-minute conversation. Yeah. But I think that's an example of Aaron Glenn coming in here and being like, okay, like we're running things my way.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing this anymore. And it'll be interesting to see if he can how well that implements, but I like what they're doing so far. And coaching staff coming together nice. I mean, I just think it's this year is about establishing, kind of like the Lions have when Glenn was there, just establishing a new culture, a winning culture, and trying to get away from the dysfunction of the past. And I think this coaching staff is definitely better set up to do that than the last set of coaches they had.
Yeah, I think before we move on to the offensive moves, because there's a good amount of them, Aaron Glenn is the type of head coach. Maybe he might not be necessarily the head coach that's going to bring the Jets to the Super Bowl for the first time since Namath brought them there, right? Like he might not be that guy, but he is probably the guy who can get them on a path that is no longer a just slow moving train car crash type situation, right? Like where you just watch this team and you're like, man, they simply can't do a single thing right. Like every time they do something right, they do four things wrong that make the thing they did right. No one even remembers it like 2 weeks from now. And that's what they need to stop happening. They need to stop the bleeding, basically, of like, we have to start stacking good things in a row, right? Or else we're never going to get out of this mess. And I think hiring Glenn should give them the opportunity to do that, even if maybe this year doesn't go particularly great, even if the next couple years aren't necessarily groundbreaking. He's at least going to bring a level of toughness and professionalism to this team that it really hasn't had since the peak, like, man, how would I don't even know when you'd say this. Maybe like when guys like Revis were at the best of his abilities, and you
Yeah.
had I can't think of his name right now. The coach during that time for them, Ryan, Rex Ryan. That the peak Rex Ryan.
Oh, what a
Like
memory.
that was the last time this Jets team was like respectable, and even then they were still weird. It just worked out for the most part because of how good that defense was, and they're kind of hoping the same type of thing can happen here. So, but before we get to the defense, because that's really the star of the show for this team, I think let's talk about their offensive moves. Some very interesting ones, to say the least. I would say they lose Aaron Rodgers, of course. Lose is a strong word. They let him go for sure. Devontae Adams, same deal. They do allow him to hit the market, and the Rams picked him up. We talked about him in the Rams preview when we did that show, or we'll do that when we do that show. Tyler Conklin out the door, solid tight end, nothing crazy, but was pretty productive for this team. Morgan Moses, again, they lose the right tackle that won't embarrass himself. They draft one they hope will be actually very good. So we'll talk about him in a second as well. Tyron Smith is out the door. Time for him to retire, unfortunately, probably, but one of the better tackles we've seen of this generation. And they extend Garrett Wilson for good money, not top of the receiver market money, probably because they haven't given a quarterback who could throw to him. So, sorry about that, Garrett. You've been very good, though, for them. Alan Lazard is restructured and kept here for now, which, all right, sure. And as far as signings go, Justin Fields on a 2-year contract to be this team's quarterback for now. We'll talk about him for sure. Josh Reynolds comes over after a tumultuous past year or so, where for a minute there it looked like he was going to be one of the Broncos' top guys, and then that just certainly didn't work out. Now he's on this team. Josh Myers comes over as a backup center from the Packers. They bring in Chuks Okorafor from the Patriots. Maybe shouldn't sign a Patriots offensive lineman from last year, but what do I know? And they draft Armand Membu with the 7th overall pick. Big fan of him. We'll talk about him. Mason Taylor, the young but talented tight end out of LSU, and then they take a flyer on the speedy but kind of lacks the whole catching part of playing receiver, Arian Smith out of Georgia. Let's talk about this offensive roster now that they've made these moves. I think the floor is significantly higher than it's been outside of kind of the end of the Rodgers season last year where things started to get better. The run game should be very interesting because Justin Fields is the quarterback here. However, the passing game is the key to this offense. Can Engstrom come over from the Lions and make Justin Fields even more passable as a passer than he was in the 6 starts he was for the Steelers last year? Because I think he showed improvement with Pittsburgh those 6 starts as a passer. It was very low volume, wasn't asked to do a whole lot of anything, but do we think that he can maybe add a little bit more to his plate now that he's in year, I think 6 now, or whatever year it would be for him?
Yeah, I think you put it best saying that they have the floor is definitely higher, but I don't know how high the ceiling is.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Justin Fields can win you games.
Yes.
He went 4-2 with the Steelers last year. Not a lot more talent on that Steelers offense than there is on this Jets offense. You have in New York, he has Garrett Wilson, so he's got that old Ohio State connection, which is nice. But aside from that, it's just not a ton of receiving talent outside of him.
No.
Running game should be very dangerous. Braylon Allen, I really like. They got Breece Hall, Justin Fields, obviously. Just looking at Fields last year, the way he won was basically the Steelers telling him, do not throw the ball over the middle of the field. Do not throw an interception. Just take care of the ball. We'll take our 18-16 win and go home. I think he can win games like that for the Jets, but I just don't know how dynamic this offense is going to be. They have the defense where they can win games that way, so I don't think that's necessarily a knock on them having a bad season just for that reason. But they're going to run the ball well. I just don't know how well. I'm interested to see how well Justin Fields looks as a passer this year, just because outside of Garrett Wilson, it's not the most stacked receiving room. Allen Lazard, okay. I fully expected him to go to the Steelers once they signed him.
Yeah.
But he's still. Yeah,
I'm glad he's over there still. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I don't know what you're getting from Allen Lazard in 2025. Josh Reynolds, okay. It's just not the most star-studded receiving room, which I think at this stage in Justin Fields' career, for him to really be a dynamic passer, he kind of has to have that kind of receiving room. Garrett Wilson is good. There's just not really a second guy to take away from that. So in that regard, I think the offense, in terms of explosiveness, throwing the ball might be capped a little bit, but at the bare minimum, I don't know if they're going to look as dynamic as they did with Rodgers during like the last couple games last year, but over the course of a full season, this offense should be better.
Yeah, I think the Jets have 2 options when it comes to this Justin Fields situation. They can either treat him as the player he's always been and basically tell him, hey, we're going to give you a lot of easy reads, first read and run situations. Try to hit Garrett Wilson on these plays. If you can't, and there isn't an immediate good other option you find, take off and run with the football, right? Like basically try to replicate that like 2022 season, I think it was for him when he ran for like 1,000 yards and like didn't really do much as a passer. Kind of lean into that version of him, or with Engstrom coming over, who was the passing game coordinator of the Lions, with this bevy of like different body types at receiver, are they going to try to ask him to actually develop more as a passer and put more on his plate? Because honestly, right now it sure looks like it's set up for him to basically just find Garrett Wilson, and if he doesn't, take off. Like that's what this offense is set up to do. Like, and if there's one thing Justin Fields can do is make you a receiver 1 in fantasy. Like look at what DJ Moore did in 2023. Like we know he can throw to the number 1 receiver. Now the number 2, just ask Darnell Mooney how that went before he went to the Falcons last year, because people thought he was toast, and it turns out, oh yeah, Justin Fields just doesn't throw to the second read. Like, Justin Fields never seen a dig route he likes in his life. Like, that's just kind of the quarterback he is right now. And if they can get more out of him, that's awesome. Then his deal, $20 million a year is going to be a steal. If they can't, or if they're not really even trying to necessarily do that, he might give them enough of a floor with the running ability to at least make this offense work in 2025. So we'll see. Overall, I like what they did, especially in the draft. Membu was my top offensive tackle, and he's a freak, man. Like, he's a physical freak. I mean, guys his size with his profile don't move like that. They really just never do. And I think you pair him with Olu Fashanu as the bookend tackles. If both of those guys work out, then you're really cooking with gas. Then you can go get the next quarterback for this team. If you do, win 4 games again this year or something like that, or close to that, you can go look for the guy that you think can be the pilot of this offense, right? If they're really good right away, they might even be too good to do that. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But this offense in general should be more interesting to watch, even if it isn't necessarily better, right? That's kind of, I think, the theme of this offense. It's going to be a lot different. We'll just see if it's better or the same, kind of. So let's get to the defensive moves, because this is really where they had just kind of throwaway moves for the most part, especially in terms of guys they lost. Javon Kinlaw, good for him getting $15 million a year. What the hell were they doing? Like, we just talked about this the other night. I don't know what that was about. Javon Kinlaw is maybe worth $5 million a year, and that's if you just really need someone who can sort of rush the passer sometimes. So whatever. Solomon Thomas is out the door as well, who honestly is a better version of Javon Kinlaw probably. They lose Lecky Fotu as well, kind of a bigger body guy. Hassan Reddick, who showed up eventually and then didn't do jack for them, which was a very funny move. Another one of those classic Jets situations.
It's just such a funny scene. I totally forgot that happened.
Right? Because how would you remember? Nothing happened, actually. He just didn't play, and then when he did play, you basically didn't know he was playing anyway. So he's out the door now with the Bucs, trying to revitalize his career. CJ Mosley is gone here. Ultra veteran linebacker, kind of time for him to go, I think, at this point. DJ Reed, who, unless he simply didn't want to play for this team, kind of insane he's not back on this team, considering that he didn't get paid like impossibly too high. I know they and I'm going to talk about it right now, they did extend Sauce Gardner for a market-setting deal, but him and DJ Reed would have been really nice to have. Now they have someone else we'll talk about in a second. Ashton Davis also gone from the safety room. They re-signed Jamie Sherwood to a really good deal for him, $15 million a year. Tony Adams is back in the safety room. Again, they extended Sauce Gardner. And then they signed Byron Coert and Derek Nottie to replace the losses in the interior. Brandon Stevens for $12 million a year. We'll talk about that more in a second. And they bring in Andre Cisco, trying to revitalize his career after a just horrendous year in Jacksonville for him, coming off a year before where it kind of looked like he was starting to emerge a little bit there, but unfortunately didn't follow that up last year. And then in the draft, they go Azariah Thomas, a corner, Malachi Moore, Francis Madigo, a linebacker, and pick up a depth edge player in Tyler Barron. Jake, I'm just going to be honest with you. Brandon Stevens cannot start for this team.
That's the first thing I was going to talk about.
Right? Like, that's what I want to talk about.
I don't
There's
understand.
No way.
I would hope not, but I think he's going to. I don't understand letting DJ Reed go. He
had
was
to
one of the more underrated. Right? He had to, but I mean,
no way.
Now you're gonna have a starting cornerback in Brandon Stevens, who gave up a 106.1 passer rating when targeted last year. And you do have Sauce Gardner on the other side of the field, which will, make up for that. But you still got to. I'm in the same boat as you with Brandon Stevens. I don't really understand that one.
They have to hope that Azariah Thomas will be good soon. Like, and great, he is like the type of corner that they want. He played that way in college. Now, my concern is is he fast enough to play that way at the NFL? Because this is a 4.6 guy at corner, and those guys typically don't hold up in press man coverage at the NFL level. Now, he was phenomenal at it in Florida State, but he did get away with some stuff at times. And if guys were willing to throw at him, they might have been able to beat him more often than he was beat there. But Florida State was so bad that they're like, why would we target the NFL player? Like why would we throw at the NFL guy? So we'll see with the corner room, but that's my biggest first glaring what in the world are we doing here? Again, I assumed DJ Reed was like, I'm not doing this. I don't want to be here. And if that's the case, so be it. But Reed had an argument. If you look at the underlying metrics from him, he had an argument to be the best man corner in the NFL period last year. It was on a bad Jets defense compared to what it's been. So him out the door here is certainly interesting. We'll see if they can kind of weather that storm with Sauce being brought back and extended there. But this defense does have all the pieces it needs, I think, to get back to what they were doing 2 years ago now. And you really kind of make this team's floor much higher than maybe it was last year.
Yeah, the up near the line of scrimmage, I think they're pretty much set. The secondary is, even though they have Sauce Gardner back there, I'm a little worried there. Just, we talked about Brandon Stevens. Andre Cisco, not great. I just think overall this is a good defense, and I think they're for the Jets to win games with Justin Fields, kind of similar to how we won with the Steelers last year. It's going to come off the strength of the defense mostly, and just Justin Fields not making mistakes. So I think this defense is capable of doing that. I just think there are a few spots where I didn't really understand what they're doing, and those happen to be in the secondary with Stevens and Cisco. But you do have Sauce Gardner back there, who they just gave a ton of money to. So
I also have to add that Harrison Phillips was traded for recently. Really nice move for them as a run-stopping guy next to Quinton Williams, because they did bring in guys like Cowart, and they have guys that can do some of that stuff. But Phillips has been an underrated run defender for the Vikings the past couple of years, so that would be, I think, a positive.
Yeah.
Too. But this defense, again, they hope that it can get back to what it was. Will McDonald broke out last year in the edge room. Jermaine Johnson should be back to full health, and he's really kind of ascending as well. This group has what it takes to be, top 10 defense again. But and Aaron Glenn did a lot more with less than he did with the Lions last year on defense too. So you think he can do that? But we'll just have to see it kind of play out this year. So, what are the expectations for this team? You think truly? What do you if you were a Jets fan, which I'm glad neither of us are, of course. Even as a Raiders fan, you're probably like, it could be the Jets. What would the expectations really be for this team? Because I'm struggling with it a little bit myself.
I am too. I think this team, I think you can look at it two ways. You can look at it from the way where they're trying to be as competitive as they can this year, in which I think they could be a middle of the pack team if Justin Fields is able to limit mistakes and take care of the ball. Just play good defense. I think they can. I don't know if there's a playoff team, but I think they can get close to contending for the playoffs. Or do you want Justin Fields to be your QB of the future, and you want to try to develop his arm a little bit and maybe take a little bit more shots, and just maybe teach him to like a dig route or something,
Ideally.
So I don't know whether the Jets look at Justin Fields as their quarterback of the future or not, or is just kind of a bridge while they stabilize themselves. If they're trying to be as competitive as possible right now, then, I think it's still hard for me to project, but I think they're a middle of the road team. If they want Fields to be their QB of the future, and they maybe try to be a little more dynamic and unique on offense, I wouldn't fault them for trying that, but I do think it might hurt them a little bit. So I don't know. Overall, I would say I think this team, I could see them being better than the Patriots, but I don't know that they're going to be a playoff team. It's just so hard to read because last year was such a shit show with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and all that I don't know. I don't know. This is probably the hardest one in the division, I think, for me to really analyze.
Me too, because I think the expectations, if I was a fan of this team, is I would just want this defense to get back to what it was. I want to see this defense be that truly suffocating, dynamic unit that it was in 2023, and honestly 2022 for the most part as well. Because if that happens, then we at least know, like, okay, we know that Aaron Glenn is the defensive mind that we think he is. Now he just has to figure out who his quarterback is going to be, because is someone who felt like Justin Fields should have kept his job last year simply because there was some amount of upside opposed to the Russell Wilson experience, which I looked wrong about that. And then the last 5 games of the year happened. I was like, well, it worked out the same anyway.
I was right all along.
Yeah, so it worked out anyway, I guess. No matter how you look at it, it's probably how it was going to end. But I just don't think Fields is a guy that you can develop truly at this point, at least enough where he is the future of this team, despite his age and the fact that he's shown improvement the last couple of years. So I do think the goal should just be, let's get through this season. He'll help us run a really dynamic running game. See if there's anything there. If there isn't, so be it. We're probably drafting quarterback anyway, right? Like, that's kind of what I think the expectations are. And as far as win total range, I think this team could be pretty bad, potentially. Like, if the offense cannot move the ball in the air, even if the run game is pretty guaranteed to be good, if it's not elite and they can't throw the ball, the defense could be really good and it might not matter. Like, I'm going to set the floor, I think, the same as the Patriots, even though the Jets have a little bit more overall talent at 5. And I think the ceiling, I'll say 9, because I think if Fields rushes for like 1,000 yards and this running game is unstoppable and he can hit a couple big throws to Wilson a game and the defense is top 5 again, like, yeah, they could sneak into the kind of the back end of the wild card conversation. But I still don't think the ceiling is very high for this team, even with some of the upgrades they made.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit wider. I'm going to say their floor is 4 wins, just because worst case scenario, starting Brandon Stevens on defense doesn't work out. But just worst case scenario, the defense isn't as good as you want it to return to. And this offense could be really one-dimensional, just with the lack of receiving talent outside of Garrett Wilson. And, they should run the ball well, but that might be the only thing they can do. And we've seen Justin Fields lose a lot of games in one-dimensional offenses. He has a better defense now, obviously, but I could see this team being pretty bad and only winning 4 games. I could see them winning 9 also. I just think, if maybe Allen Lazard doesn't need Aaron Rodgers this year, Josh Reynolds could have a good year. You got Arian Smith, the receiver. Justin Fields won games with the Steelers last year,
He did
that with a stable coaching staff and a good defense. And I think if they set the right culture there, if the defense is playing well, I mean, he proved last year, it was a small sample size, only 6 games, but he did prove that he could win games when he doesn't make mistakes and the defense plays well. I think this team has to be a little less one-dimensional. In terms, he's going to need to show more to win 9 games in a season for Justin Fields. He has to throw the ball more consistently than he has yet in his career. It just has to happen. But last year was an improvement for him, and I think it's possible that he takes that step forward and this team could win 9 games. I'm not going to say 10.
That feels like a lot.
That feels like too much for the Jets.
We have to see them turn around a little bit again before they do that. But
I don't think it's a playoff team. I think best case scenario they're 8 seed with 9 wins.
Yeah, like a fringe wild card contender. Which honestly, I think as a Jets fan, you'd be like,
I would take that.
So let's move on to the Miami Dolphins, who again, I hate to talk ill of a team that a friend of ours is a fan of, but he would be doing the same thing if he was here. And maybe he'll show up in the middle of this and he could be like, "What did you guys say? Bad stuff? All right, I say the same thing as well." That's exactly how I feel. It's tough with the Dolphins, and I have a lot to say about this team, but start with the coaching changes. Nothing notable, believe it or not. So nothing really, to speak on that is particularly notable to me. I'm trying to
just a slightly more depressed McDaniels.
Yeah, I feel like I hear more and more, or hear less and less funny quips from him. I think we're breaking his soul a little bit.
He said something the other week about it's like a something like this a bad day because I woke up again or something like that, and I was like,
That's
"Geez,
not great. It's not great. It's like when Kyle Shanahan, who
not what you want to hear your coach say."
arguably like could be learning from him a little bit when like Kyle Shanahan was like, I don't know, I can't guarantee we'll wake up tomorrow or something. I forget what he said. I was like, dude, let's relax a little bit. Like it's not that serious. No, but nothing major on the coaching front. McDaniel's still around here. Frank Smith at offensive coordinator. Anthony Weaver still the defensive coordinator, who I think he did an okay job last year. It's still funny to me, though, in hindsight, that they ran Vic Fangio out of town because the players, I guess, didn't like him. And I'm like, maybe don't let your players do that. I don't know. I don't want to say anything. I'm not a head coach, but that's just probably what I would do is to be like, I don't know, maybe just deal with it because he's good at his job. But whatever, we'll talk about that. So about the offensive moves, because there were a decent amount for a team that has kind of had this offense in the same spot for the most part. Not a ton of moving parts over the past couple of years with McDaniel here. He's gotten his guys in place and kind of stuck with them. But they do lose Tyler Huntley, a quarterback who you could argue that's not a loss at all, but he did play some for this team last year.
Pro Bowler,
Pro Bowler Snoop Huntley. Check the stats on that season. Holy crap, is that fun. Braxton Berrios is out the door. Johnny Smith traded to the Steelers. Interesting trade. We'll talk about that trade for sure a little bit. Blocking tight end specialist Durham Smythe out the door. Robert Jones and Isaiah Wynn along the offensive line also out the door. Not that either of them did a whole lot of anything for them, but still pieces missing for that offensive line. They signed Zach Wilson, which, all right. I don't know about that, but whatever. Alexander Madison, again, you can chime in on this, Jake. Probably not awesome if he has to play. I think he might be banged up at this point, though, if I'm not mistaken. So I have to double check that, so it might not matter anyway. Nick Westbrook-Ikini, which I actually did like this, Mr. Touchdown Man for the Titans last year. The only thing he does is catch touchdowns. I'm not sure why that is, but cool. So there's that. That move, I think, is one of the more interesting ones they made, but we'll talk about it. Darren Waller, who
we'll talk. I got some.
Oh, I know you do. Also, Raiders.
I'll have some words for their tight end position moves this offseason.
Yes, also some Raiders ties there with Darren Waller. He only practiced, I think, for the first time recently. So, okay.
Starting tight end.
Tight end Darren Waller.
I'm
pretty sure he's listed as a starter.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if he is one, considering
he is.
He hasn't played at all for a little bit there. They bring him in, though, for sure. Again, that's interesting. James Daniels, the guard from the Steelers. I do like this move if he's healthy. He was phenomenal to start the season last year for the Steelers, then went down to the torn Achilles, which, man, if you're a Jets player, maybe really stretch those Achilles tendons out, man. Like, kind of seems to be a problem. Like, I don't know. So definitely do that. Daniel Brunskill's brought in, experienced guard. Larry Borum, experienced tackle there as well. And they trade up for as well, Jonas Savanaia, running back Ollie Gordon, and quarterback Quinn Ewers. Definitely my favorite quarterback from this class. Not actually. Jake knows that very well. This offense is interesting. The couple moves they made that might mean something give me an impression that they're trying to add a little bit of physicality and toughness to this unit. But I'll talk about it with the defense too when we get to it. But my kind of reaction to that, Jake, is like too little, too late is the best way you can describe it.
Yeah.
It's
I like their offensive line additions. Too little too late is a good way. It kind of feels like McDaniels is like, okay, my gimmick is not working, and this is a make or break year, so I'm going to make a half-hearted push to be more physical. That's kind of what it feels like to me. Like their moves to get more physical and just last as the season goes on. Like I can see where their thought is at. I don't know if it's enough. I have a lot of questions for this offense. We'll start at tight end. I cannot understand moving Jonnu Smith and then picking up Darren Waller. I don't know if they moved Jonnu Smith just to make the trade go along, but I can't imagine the Steelers wouldn't have just swapped Ramsey and Fitzpatrick and the draft picks that they did. I don't think Jonnu Smith was like the make or break for that deal. I think he was just the guy the Steelers were interested in, which just makes me wonder.
Can't imagine why they were interested in him. Not like Arthur Smith is his offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
anyway,
but it's fine to not want to bring Jonnu Smith back, which I still wouldn't understand because he is getting up there in age, but I mean he just had the best season of his career. As someone who picked him up in one of my fantasy leagues late in the year, super great addition. But I mean he had 8 touchdowns. I think he was real close to 900 receiving yards. I think he had
I think it was 800. I think it was 884 specifically.
Yeah. I mean, he's a versatile guy. I mean, he could play out wide. He lines up in the backfield. He doesn't block as well. So I could see maybe wanting to move on from him. But for Darren Waller,
rapper Darren Waller.
Darren Waller's last year with the Raiders. It was coached by Josh McDaniels, so I will headline it with that. Lots of bad things happen when he coaches a team, so maybe has something to do with that. But his last year with the Raiders, he did not look like he had any desire to play. He dropped a shitload of passes. His hamstring was pulled pork, and he didn't block. Somehow the Giants agreed to send, I think, a 3rd-round pick to the Raiders for Waller. Mm-hmm. And some of those same issues. I mean, he wasn't terrible with the Giants, but it was just the same stuff. And then he retires, I think, halfway through the season. So I do not understand. Look, if they had another starting caliber tight end in place and they just wanted Darren Waller to be another piece of the offense, I'd be okay with that because I would be like, okay, you're taking a shot on a guy who did have some sustained success, some really good sustained success when he was in his prime, but he hasn't been healthy. He had problems with drops in his last year. He really just, like, his last year with the Giants and his last year with the Raiders, he just didn't look like he cared that much. So it's not even just the tight end position specifically. I think that kind of move just symbolizes the fact that I don't know what direction the Dolphins are trying to go. Like, I don't. It's just that move specifically, I think, paints the best picture of what type of direction are we really going in here. They might have the most mid quarterback room of all time with Tua, Zach Wilson, and Quinn Ewers. Although Quinn Ewers has been playing well this preseason. I actually, at running back, I actually don't really mind the addition of Alexander Mattison. I thought he did okay. He was on the Raiders offense that was god awful. So
it's true. They
nobody. You got to think nobody was scared of whoever they had throwing the ball, and the offensive line was terrible. So I don't. Alexander Mattison is not going to make or break your offense, but I do think he's a nice depth addition. I like getting Ollie Gordon. My biggest questions here are just what improvements have they made after, falling apart at the end of last season and losing in the playoffs the season before. It just doesn't seem like there's a real clear direction here offensively.
That's my biggest issue with it is it seems like they want to try to rectify some of the problems that they've run into, which is they can be one of the best offenses week to week in the NFL, most explosive, most productive. But in games against teams that can stop some of the gimmicky stuff and can just basically dare them to actually run a real offense. I don't want to try to act like this is a fake offense. I don't want to take away what McDaniel's done and what Tua has been able to do. But let's just be real about it. They can't run offense in the traditional way because the way they've chosen to do it is basically, all right, Tua, you're going to drop back and you're going to throw to a predetermined spot pretty much all the time. And you're going to hope that Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle or whoever who are fast as shit are going to beat their dude off the line or find the zone or the hole in the zone. You're going to throw it to that hole in the zone, and they're going to run with it for 40 yards. And that's fine. It makes sense. But it's limited. Like, at some point, you're going to run into a team that's like, let's just do everything we can not to let them do that. And then as soon as Tua has to create something, as soon as the offensive line doesn't have to has to pass block for more than 1.5 seconds, it just doesn't work. And it's not really designed to work that way. Like, that's the thing. It's not even one of those things where it's like, oh, well, we're trying to, like, no, you design the offense to work this way. And you realize that once you get into the playoffs, if you do get in the playoffs, you're just going to lose to teams in the playoffs that are playing it. Like, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And, like, it sucks because you look at the production. You look at what Tyreek Hill did, especially his first 2 years with the Dolphins. You look at the numbers that Tua was able to put up when his head wasn't Swiss cheese. And you're like, how is this not a team that's a threat in the playoffs? And it's because when you get there, if the weather isn't perfect, if the defensive backs aren't just getting dusted immediately, and if the zones aren't open for Tua to throw into, they don't have a counter. They don't have a way to make the offense work when those things aren't working. And until they do, this offense could score 40 points one week, and I don't care. I've seen them do it. Like, them scoring 40 points doesn't move me when I've seen what happens when they go up against teams like the Bills, who've played them enough and know how to stop that type of stuff. When they have to play a team that isn't in their home stadium, when it's not 100,000 degrees and the sideline is 1 billion degrees because of the way the stadium's built. Like, it just doesn't move me on offense. Like, these offensive moves make sense, a lot of them, but I just don't know if I care one bit at this point. Like, I need to see them actually prove to me they can, one, run the ball more effectively than they did last year when things just kind of fell apart, and two, can Tua do anything other than the same stuff he's been doing year over year? And if he can't, I don't think it matters that much at the end of the day. Like, are you telling me Zach Wilson's going to come in if Tua dies again almost and is going to do anything for you? You're talking about Quinn Ewers. I wanted to look it up because I thought this was the case. So far in the preseason, okay, Quinn Ewers, 16 of 35 passing.
Oof. Okay.
2 touchdowns, right? No picks, but 3 turnover-worthy plays, 0 big-time throws, and 35 attempts. Not ideal.
That sounds so much like Quinn Ewers. Like,
it is, though. That's the problem.
That we know and don't love.
Now, he has had 2 drops, but again, the adjusted completion percentage is 54.5. That's not good, guys. I don't want to tell you. I don't want to sit here and say like, oh, it's a disaster. But Zach Wilson, kind of the same thing. He's 20 of 32, so more efficient with his passes, but the yards per attempt are higher. But 1 big time throw, 3 turnover-worthy plays himself, and only 32 attempts. Not awesome. The average depth of target for both these guys is about 8 and 7, so it's nothing particularly good. Zach Wilson's been sacked 5 times, and the 2 of them have been sacked 7 total. Their pressure to sack rate is both over 33%. Small sample sizes, right? We'll see how they play in the 3rd preseason game. But do you want either of them being like the fact that you have Tua Tagovailoa as your quarterback, and the backups in recent years have been Tyler Huntley, Skylar Thompson, shout out, and now Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers is so funny. It's just like I would send a 3rd round pick to the Falcons tomorrow for Kirk Cousins just to be the backup. I won't even tell you to play him over Tua. But at this point, you better have a backup who can play because Tua is probably in his time.
If the Steelers don't keep Skylar Thompson, I wouldn't be surprised to see them.
They should ask for him back. He's probably
he had a really good preseason. And I think looking at that quarterback group, you should, because he has. He started a playoff game.
He has.
And he almost won it. I mean, he didn't almost win it, but the Dolphins almost won it.
He didn't do much, yeah.
So, that now that you bring that up, that is a name that I think I wouldn't be surprised to see the Dolphins try to bring him back. If
Quinn Ewers can go play in the CFL, and then
the CFL is made for players like Quinn Ewers.
It's true. Yeah, no offense to Quinn, but kind of offense to him. Let's move to the defense, where I do like these moves definitely more, and I think there were some moves that I think make a ton of sense here. So losses here, Calais Campbell, the ageless wonder, right? Like, good for him. Still a really good player. Manuel Ogba at edge out of here. Tyus Bowser was a guy that didn't play a ton for them, but I do think is a guy that is one of those 4th, 5th edge types that is useful for a lot of teams. So you want to see them get better there. Anthony Walker, linebacker. They found their true starter in Tyrell Dodson, who we'll talk about in a second here. But so they let him go here. Jalen Ramsey out the door. We've talked about that. We'll talk about the trade here in a second. They let him go, trade him to the Steelers for Mika Fitzpatrick, who's one of their additions this year on defense. Kendall Fuller's out the door. Javon Holland, who had a rough year last year, but I still think he should have already been locked up. I mean, I think there's a real chance that he just blows up again with the Giants and really kind of rectifies the Xavier McKinney situation when they let him go last year. Jordan Poyer's gone. Didn't play a ton for them, but still gone here. They re-signed, will extend Zach Seiler. They restructured the deal of Bradley Chubb to make it a little bit more palatable with his injury situation. Again, Tyler Dodson's brought back, Kader Kohu as well. And then they go out and sign Matthew Butler from, I believe that was from the Raiders, Jay, correct?
Yeah.
For them last year. Mike Hilton joins the corner room because, boy, do they need any bodies at all. Willie Gay Jr., linebacker. Jack Jones is also brought in here. Ifeatu Melifonwu was brought in here. Mika Fitzpatrick we talked about. And safety Ashton Davis from the Jets. A lot of inter-division moves, which happens a lot in this league. And then they draft Kenneth Grant in the first round. Admittedly, definitely the type of player they need to be adding. Another interior defensive lineman, Jordan Phillips. And Jason Marshall, the corner out of, I believe it was USC. Or am I thinking of someone else?
I think it was.
I forget if it's Florida. Was it maybe Florida? I'd have to double.
I think it was Florida. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but he's actually been, from what I've seen, the reports have been very good here. And we got Zach is joining us just in time to still talk about the Dolphins.
Just in time. We were definitely not complaining about your Dolphins.
You want to flash up that little what's the name thing underneath me?
Oh yeah, here, hold on, gotcha.
Yeah. Because this absolutely sums up how I feel right now.
Let's show it here.
There
we go. Misery.
Yeah. My whole thing about the Dolphins lies in the fact that they likely will not have a defense, an NFL caliber defense to field on week 1.
That seems possible with the injuries.
Yeah. It's ridiculous at this point. It's like
you don't think Jack Jones is gonna bring you guys back to?
I literally just had to edit a piece about how Ethan Bronner, my bad, Ethan Bonner, that's how the writer spelled it the entire time, was Bronner. I was going mad. But Ethan Bonner knows that Mike McDaniel is on the hot seat. And I'm like, okay, we care about Ethan Bonner's opinion? Holy crap, we're in a really bad spot. Yeah, so it's not looking great.
I'm just going to throw this out there, Zach, because I'm not sure if you caught any of the things we were talking about. But my general feeling on the offense and defense this year, with the moves they made, is they're definitely trying to build more of a physicality to this group and to these units. But my opinion of that and my thoughts on that is just kind of, again, what I said earlier, Jake, too little, too late for me. I think it's too late in this process for any of that to really matter a ton. I just don't think you can tell me with a straight face that the things they've done this offseason is going to be enough to actually convince me that this team should stay built the way that it's currently built.
I think it could have been enough had they not lost as much as they lost in the offseason. I think that was the kicker right there, is they finally – Chris Grier somehow managed to save face somewhat by drafting trenches this year. But again, as you just said, it's too little too late, because this is a problem that has gone back to the Tannehill era, where we just have, or the Dolphins have just decided to not invest in what is clearly the problem. And then you go around and you try to bypass that by this nice fancy offense. Okay, that's cool. Yes, you're working on anticipation, and Tua has incredible processing speed and all of this stuff. That's awesome. But the problem is, all right, when it goes to fail, you're also not investing in the big bruiser running back that you would need, because you can't make any rushing lanes. You're not investing in the guy who, and God bless his heart, I'm still going to support him no matter what, but Tua's neck is made of glass. You're not investing in anything to protect him, to stop his glass neck from breaking every single time. So Like, and I can't. And my problem as a fan is, can I fault him for taking these injuries? No, because every time it happens, it's on him trying to fight for extra yards or trying to get the first down or trying to get the touchdown. And do you want your quarterback or running back or offensive player or even defensive player, if they have a turnover for a touchdown, want to do that? Absolutely. But when he can't, because if he gets hit with any sort of force that's going to cause him to miss 4, 5, 6 games, you're kind of stuck in this weird spot to where, all right, well, then give me the protection to where he doesn't have to rush the ball and these things can formulate. But then you're talking about something that's not his game because, okay, he's protected. We found out the longer that Tua has the ball, the worse off he's going to be. So,
yeah, and that's kind of my issue with this team ultimately. And I talked about this earlier, Jake, but this offense we know what it's capable of in the right situations. The problem is if those right situations don't come up, they have zero recourse. They have no way to adapt and to overcome even the slightest bit of roadblocks that a defense is able to put up. If they're able to clog the passing lanes just enough, if they're able to rush the passer well enough that even these quick hitting passes get disrupted, if the receivers aren't playing very well, Tua just doesn't have the ability to make up for that. He is a very much a one trick, I don't want to call him one trick pony per se, but his best attribute, if you take it away, he just doesn't have anything else to lean on. Like he doesn't have the physical traits. He doesn't have the arm strength. He doesn't have the creativity. And even when he does try to be creative, he fucking dies almost every time.
You guys are ignoring the greatest trait that Tua has. And that's the ability to absolutely forget what happened the previous play.
Oh, he definitely is great at that.
And come back and pretend like nothing. Because, let me tell you, the amount of times
he's got memory issues for sure, Zach.
Yeah,
let me tell you what.
The amount of times I've watched this man throw the worst interception possible and then come back out and not necessarily put it in the same place, but it's to the point where it's like, oh man, you really don't care that you just did that. It's just like, oh wow. And to a point, you want your quarterback to have that, but not to the extent to where they don't remember what happened. And it's like you're seeing it all over again for the first time every single time.
But that's the issue, Zach, is that when he throws, his anticipation, it is phenomenal. The problem is he's throwing the ball to a spot and he does not know the outcome until it happens. He's not seeing a receiver be open. He's throwing to a spot because he has to, because if he doesn't do it that way, he won't work, right? So that's why his interceptions, as bad as they are, it's mostly not necessarily because he whether he's good or bad. It's just how he has to play.
Well, yes,
and it becomes a problem. Yeah.
And with what Miami's offense is, if you really think about it, what you're saying, are they technically his fault? No, because he's
some of them, yes, but for the most part, no.
Yeah. He's been told to throw to those spots because if the play runs how it's supposed to, that person's going to be there.
Yeah.
And so that's when last year you have Tyreek Hill playing one of his worst seasons in forever. If he's not showing up, one of the one people that you need to show up and be that person to be in those spots and those plays. That's why that comment that he made this offseason about, I'm finally learning the offense for the first time in 4 years. What are you talking about?
I can't believe I didn't bring that up earlier.
Yeah, Tyreek's one of the guys in the NFL.
The offseason comment I saw the whole entire
and then you're gonna go on and talk about how another player should be Benson Achane when we know for a fact that when he has the ball, they're the best when he has the ball in his hands. He's getting the most yardage, he's breaking the most tackles, he's getting the most yards after contact. So it's just and I appreciate what I do appreciate is while Tua does lack a lot of the stuff on the field, it does seem like he's taking the leadership thing 100% serious, and he is holding Tyreek accountable. And from everything that he said, I've liked the way that he's held himself this offseason and held the team accountable this offseason. What's really going to happen is it going to relate to the actual season?
I mean, Tua, from a leadership standpoint, I agree. I as a onlooker, it is funny to hear him say that Tyreek is trying to rebuild trust with the locker room, and then he just says oh yeah, this guy shouldn't start in this scenario. I think it's very funny.
It was literally in the same interview.
Yeah, I think Tyreek is one of the players in the NFL for sure. That's my takeaway.
My issue, we talked about it earlier in the offseason. What happens when you get 3-4 weeks in the offseason? It's not going as great because Like I said, the defense is decimated. You don't have the players on defense that even if you had the people that you were intending to start week 1, it wasn't going to be that great anyways. I'm just putting that out there because it didn't look good. And then now you're even playing further behind the 8 ball. So what happens when you're looking at a 1-3, 1-4, 2-4 team, and now Tyreek Hill's like, I'm not happy. I want out again. And at that point, you have to give in because you cannot continue to keep that malcontent. You have to get rid of that because it's the value is only going to get worse. So you, for the love of Mike McDaniel and Tua, you really hope that those first 4 or 5 weeks, you guys are humming so you don't lose the biggest weapon on your team. And that way you can get to the point to where you might be getting some of your talent back on defense.
Now, counterpoint, Zach. He'll run real fast down the field.
Yeah. Hopefully he does it like he did 2 years ago and not last year.
No, I know. I'm supposed to.
I think the biggest issue last year was just how often it looked like he didn't care. It would be one thing.
He definitely didn't give a shit. They were bad.
It would be one thing. It would be one thing if he were out there actually giving an effort last season, but there were plenty of times where you could see him literally give away turnovers. Like he had the ball and the defenders just were like, no, that's mine now. And he didn't even fight for it. Bat it away, do something. And that was the most frustrating part of paying this man so much money. You have all these other players on the roster busting ass, trying to make a late season comeback, all this stuff. And he's just like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. Let's talk about the defensive moves here a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I just read them all off for the most part, but I like the interior defensive line additions. I think it's really going to help this team's run defense, and I think they will be much tougher up front. However, I do think, and it's hard for me to say for sure because I'd have to really spend some time thinking about it. I think if Minkah Fitzpatrick is the version of himself he's been the past 2 years and not closer to the version of himself he was a few years ago for the Steelers, this might be the worst secondary I've ever seen in my life.
I'm pretty sure it already is. It won't matter.
Because
I don't look.
Even if he returns to being the ball magnet that he was, it's still probably the worst secondary in the league.
Well, because at least with him, the turnovers might be there occasionally, and I think that puts it above like some secondaries I've seen. But like currently, now I know this depth chart isn't like the probably the one it's going to be potentially, but I'm seeing Storm Duck featured prominently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He is good. I was about to say that last week. We were talking about one team, and I was like, "Hey, it's not that bad until Storm Duck is starting for your secondary."
Yeah. You're telling me that Storm Duck, Kendall Sheffield, who I forgot was still playing in the game, like still playing in the NFL, Mike Hilton at like 32 years old, who admittedly was still a good player last year, but he's your best corner probably pretty easily right now, and he's the slot corner.
Yeah.
Jack Jones, who, I mean, maybe he'll have some interceptions, I guess, probably.
Ashton Davis, baby.
Of all the former Raiders that the Dolphins could have got this offseason, they got the worst ones.
Yeah, all the former Raiders who were just getting dispersed throughout the league, and the Dolphins ended up with the worst one somehow. I don't know how they managed to do that.
Jack Jones brings absolutely nothing to a secondary right now. Like I had to watch him play last year. That one-handed interception he had, the pick six where he talks shit to Patrick Mahomes and the one-handed interception, those two plays are the only reason he's still in the NFL. Like if he doesn't make those two plays, I don't think he's on a roster right now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately the Dolphins got duped.
You know, they just honestly the only reason he's on the team even for them is just because they had to sign somebody.
Well, yeah, we had to sign someone because everyone's dead. So, yeah.
I mean,
again, I said it in the chat before, like much earlier. I think this is genuinely the first year, not for football in general. I like watching football in general. There's never going to be a better sports season for me than watching football. But I think this is the first time for the teams that I actually care about and root for in both college and professional that I have zero excitement or like anticipation for the season because I know it's going to be horrible.
Yeah. I will say I do think if Minka can get back to being a ball hawk and not just playing way off the ball in the middle of the field, I do think he can uplift the secondary a bit because he was dreadful against the pass last year, but I mean, I don't think he was getting used right. And if the Dolphins let him play like a ball hawk like he did his first couple years in Pittsburgh, I think that can be a big help for the secondary.
I legitimately think that they should just tell him, "Hey, man, just do whatever you want to do."
Yeah,
like just kind of do roam around.
The last 2 years, I think, has been more of a result of the Steelers trying to micromanage him too much.
They're trying to play conservative, keep the top
just
on
letting
defense,
him play.
Yeah.
If he can get back to that level, I think that makes a big difference for this.
They didn't trust their corners, man. They just didn't.
No, not at all. But yeah, if he looks the same as he did last year in terms of giving up a passer rating of like 120 and just not getting turnovers, the secondary could be real troublesome.
Yeah. But again, the defensive moves, like I hope that guys like Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips can make immediate impacts and run defense. Grant has certainly pass rush upside despite his size. That's why he goes as early as he did. Again, the edge rushing group here too, if everyone's healthy, it's really good.
But that's the thing. If everyone's
healthy. But are
any
of them going to be healthy?
We're talking about Nick Chubb. We're talking about Jalen Phillips.
Chubb. That's a whole other problem. Bradley Chubb is who.
Bradley Chubb, my bad. Bradley Chubb. We're talking about Phillips. We're talking about
Chop Robinson.
I mean, yeah. I am praying to God that, despite the cursed burial ground that Hard Rock Stadium is built on, that we're just not going to fall into nothingness and have another repeat of last. Because I guess what makes it more frustrating is it makes it hard to actually tell how good the team is, because you make all these moves and then you lose everybody and you're like, okay, do we blame it on the coach or do we blame it on this? Or do we say, hey, you guys got kind of screwed and you deserve another chance? But that's not quite how the NFL works. It's way too fast moving that, and McDaniel's already coming in on the hot seat. So what do you even do?
The last thing I want to mention on the Dolphins before we get to their expectations and the win total range here. I said this earlier, but I wanted to say this with you here, Zach. The fact that this team felt like adding Darren Waller at tight end after trading Jonnu Smith away, and then deciding that the best course of action for the backup quarterback job for a team whose quarterback has brain trauma almost certainly is Quinn Ewers in the 7th round and signing Zach Wilson. That's incredible to me.
I'm actually not opposed to the Zach Wilson idea.
Is it because you hope they bottom out and get the first overall pick if he plays?
No,
otherwise, I'm not into it.
I actually think that this is probably what's best for him to get in this backup role and pop up as a backup quarterback instead of being a starter. I actually think he could.
Oh, sure. In general. But
yeah. And I think he would provide more competent backup level play than the Dolphins have had the past 4 or 5 years.
I mean, the bar admittedly is low. So
yeah, I mean, it's not Skylar Thompson or
hey, right now, Skylar Thompson might be the best quarterback of the career I just said.
Right. I was going to say, respect Skylar Thompson.
I mean, he did almost win
2025 preseason MVP Skylar Thompson.
Yes. Yeah.
He did almost win us a playoff game. So I do have to give him that.
Yeah. But anyway, well, let's move on to expectations for this team. My expectations for the Dolphins is that they just look at themselves in the mirror at the middle of the season and go, man, maybe we still should stop being like us. Maybe we should stop doing this whole thing of let's just try to min-max this thing as best we can and just try to keep trudging forward. There needs to be, and I think McDaniel could work out, even maybe as head coach somewhere else, but especially as an offensive play caller somewhere. They need to just blow this thing the whole way up. They need to be willing at the end of the season when the same thing happens, which is they're either just good enough to be competitive and they maybe even make the playoffs somehow by doing this whole scoring 40 points 1 week and 10 the next situation, and inevitably get absolutely destroyed in the playoffs. they need to be willing to just say, hey, everyone who works for this organization who is capable of being fired, pack your bags, bro, and just start this whole thing over again. That's my feelings.
Put pin in there because unfortunately, I don't necessarily see the list of people who I feel like would be a better candidate than McDaniel to take over and coach because he's not a bad coach. What really needs to happen
is
no, Stephen Ross needs to look in his heart of hearts and look at the past 7-10 years and realize that there is one common denominator. There is one man who has gotten away from being the scapegoat this entire time, even though it's extremely clear he is the problem.
Does it start with a C?
And that is Chris Grier. Like, I'm sorry. I do not know how he has maintained his spot as GM. He has to have some of the worst dirt on Stephen Ross possible to be like, hey, guess what? You get rid of me. You're not keeping this organization. Because like it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Like they've had what? I want to say 5 or 6 different head coaches under him. He had Philbin. That's how far back we're going.
Yeah. Well, yeah, GM. I think a GM that doesn't get fired no matter what is one of the funniest like tropes in sports, where it's like, it's like he's just we just like him here, it's like, but he's bad. They're like, yeah.
And what makes it even crazier is you're talking about the GM, and before he was the GM, guess what he was in charge of?
I don't even remember.
Scouting.
Well, that's funny.
So you're talking about a former scouting director who became the GM and still can't draft worth anything. Why is he still the GM? It's clearly not McDaniel. Get him somebody who can actually get the people that he needs. Like, that's where I just put that pin in, because I don't think that getting rid of everybody is the answer. Because, yes, getting rid of everybody would get rid of Grier. But really, if you got rid of Grier and paired McDaniel with a competent GM, he would be doing so much better.
Maybe, for sure. What would your expectations for this team be, Jake?
If I was a Dolphins fan, I would want a blow up, but not everybody. Like, I do think there are a lot of good pieces on this team. I think a retool would be what I want, but for the sake of competing this year, I think the Dolphins can, if, as Zach kind of said, if they get out to a hot start. Because I agree. I think if they start 1-3 or 2-4, we're going to see Tyreek Hill quit on the field, which is
better or worse for this
offense. I really hope it is not at that level.
I think it'd be really funny if he just pretended he was AB and did the whole theatrical one too, and not even just like stop running his route or something. Like,
I mean, I really wouldn't put it past him, but I also could see him trying to be the professional to try to get somewhere else.
Maybe, yeah. Send me back to Patrick. I need my Patrick, please.
Yeah, I think if this team can win a couple of games to start the year and get some good vibes going, I think they can compete for the playoffs this year, because there is talent, and if you can be in contention long enough to get some of that health back on the defensive side, I could see this team making a run for the playoffs. I do think it's just as likely that the defense is as bad as it can be, and things start to flame out. So I think I'm a little more optimistic than most when it comes to the Dolphins, because I do think they have enough talent to still be competitive this year, and I think a lot of people just expect them to kind of fall off the map. I think they can be competitive, but fast start is like mandatory. Like if they get off to a slow start, I think it all goes downhill from there.
Yeah. I think you kind of told us your expectations, Zach, but anything you want to chime in on with this section here?
Yeah, expectations, or I have no expectations for the first time. Which feels incredible, because that means I'm not going to get let down when I feel like they should be making a run for the playoffs, and all of a sudden it's I think they were 2-6 last year. So I do agree with Jake that they could have a good run, but I'm not expecting it. I'm expecting this team to crash and burn, unfortunately, likely ending up doing what Shane just said and tearing everything down and getting rid of some of the good pieces, but also in the process getting rid of all the bad pieces. However, I don't have the faith in Ross to make the right decision anyways. So even though he's done great things for the league and great things for the DEI initiatives and all those things, like he's not a bad person, but I just need him to bring somebody in that knows something about football and not somebody who wants to know something about football. Because again, we've seen so many times where the owners that are too involved with the team are the ones that aren't doing it.
Oh, I've seen it.
No way. Mine is the opposite, where he's like, everything's fine. It's like, I don't know, man. It might not all be fine, but we'll see.
I mean, except for the head coach, because they're going to be like, yo, get rid of him, get rid of him. He's like, okay, but, don't worry about the GM.
Yeah. Let's get into the win total range here. I think this team could potentially bottom out. I'm just going to start there. I don't know if it's going to be like tragically bad, because like I do think there's enough talent on this team that as long as enough of the players are actually like playing by like week 12 and not hurt or dead or whatever it's going to be, then I think that they're going to be serviceable most of the year. This offense, when everyone's healthy and on it, is still going to be able to put up points on 2/3 of the league. It's just the other third that's really good that they can not really do a whole lot against, because they have the tools to actually stop the offense. But I'd say 6. I don't think they fully bottom out. I think unless it's like a true like Tua's out, freaking Quinn Ewers is starting games, like Ollie Gordon's leading around. Like unless that happens, then I think they're at least probably looking at like 6 wins at the fewest. And the ceiling, I'll say 10. I think that if everyone's healthy again, they could probably sneak into the wild card, as they've done multiple times. But I think they're even less equipped to actually do something if they get there, which is the problem with it. But I still think that they're kind of in that like near the bottom of the league / like fringe wild card territory at the best. So what do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it can be as bad as when I watched every single game of the 1-15 season. It's not that bad of a team, but I do think it can be pretty bad. I have a asterisk win total. I have my win total for if Tua misses
like plays all the
games
games
or less, and then I have my total if Tua has or misses more than that. If Tua misses 3 games or less, I think that's the perfect spot for Wilson to step in at the backup, not have any issues, and they're fine. They could probably get between 7 to 10 wins, possibly be looking at just missing the playoffs, if not making the playoffs, and possibly a top-heavy, big parity AFC. If he misses more than 3 games, I definitely feel like this team is bottoming out and is probably in the 4 to 6 win range and looking like one of the worst teams in the league, very high up in the draft. I don't remember if we traded our first round draft pick, but at some point we probably will. And if we didn't, we probably lost it for something stupid. So
that's fair. I think you have it next year, though. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So thank God we have it next year, but we only have it for now. So yeah, if Tua misses a bunch of games, I think it's like 4 to 6. If he stays and plays a lot, I'll do 7 to 10.
All right. What do you think, Jake?
I'm gonna go pretty wide. I'm gonna go 4 to 11. I think
worst case scenario to do that with, it's probably this one.
Yeah, I think worst case scenario, Tua gets hurt, Tyreek Hill, something happens there that's not good.
Tyreek Hill literally climbs into the stands and watches the rest of the game from the bleachers.
That would actually be really good television. I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't hate that.
Yeah, I think if that happens, Minka looks the same as he has the last 2 years in Pittsburgh, and none of those players in the secondary step up. I could see the team winning 4 games. Yeah, if Storm Duck doesn't step up, or Jack Jones,
beware of the duck, bro.
I'm pretty sure he went to Oregon too.
He was at Oregon. He was also, I think, briefly on Penn State's roster. I think maybe, I don't know, something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
We did also just sign Matthew Judon, so.
Man, that would have been cool 3 years ago.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sorry. Anyway, ask Atlanta how that went.
Anyway, good, Jake, so. I don't. Yeah, so that's the worst case scenario. I think best case scenario, I could see this team winning 11 games. I mean, they've done it. The defense would have to take some strides. They would have to have some some players step up. One of those being Minka. He would have to get back to form. But if you can get off to a good start, get some health back defensively, have Minka be the turnover creating safety that he has been for most of his career, and just the offense click to stay healthy, I could see this team winning 11 games. So I don't really know what to do with the Dolphins. I would say it's more likely that they bottom out than they contend, but I could see it. So I'll put that out there.
Here's the real question. If they win 11 games and make the playoffs, do they win their first playoff game since 2000?
If they are playing at home, maybe. But if they have to go anywhere,
if they're an 11-win wild card team, I might not watch that game because I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous at that point.
You're not probably winning the division at 11 games this year with the Bills. Speaking of them, time to talk about the Buffalo Bills, the reigning AFC champions for I forget how many years in a row now, but it's been a couple at least at this point.
The new Patriots.
The new Patriots. Don't say that to Zach. That might be the last straw for him at that point.
I mean, honestly, I can appreciate Sean McDermott a lot more than I can appreciate Bill Belichick. And
that's fair because Sean McDermott's only sort of okay.
And
I've gone through similar in the AFC.
Allen is not nearly as despisable as Brady. So
that's the problem with Josh Allen too. You're right, because like McDermott to me is like firmly like one of those coaches where I'm like, I know you're a good coach, but I feel like you're not good enough, kind of type of thing. And then Josh is just so fun to watch, and he just is so derpy that it's like you can't hate Josh Allen.
No. He's not fun to watch. He's horrifying to watch because he.
Well, for you, for me, it's fun. He's beat my team like 3 times. But I don't give a shit.
He is. I would say he's hard to hate though because he's not a hateable guy. Brady was a very hateable guy, like a very hateable.
It's very easy to hate
whereas
Tom Brady,
like Josh Allen doesn't do anything wrong. Like there's no scandal, there's no whatever. He's just he's a pistachio farmer. Like
you could tell Brady was a hateable guy because teams that did not play in his division hated him.
Yeah, they still hated him.
Like
Josh Allen just makes fun TikTok videos with the Bills like marketing team, and then goes home to his wife, who is Haley Steinfeld. Like, if you're gonna hate him, that's probably why. For those
goes home to his multi-acre, multi-million-dollar pistachio farm.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, pistachios. Sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's so California Central Valley.
Very much is.
Oh yeah.
He's the definition of that type of person.
Absolutely. Yeah. Coaching staff changes, none of which to speak of because the Bills have kind of
Bills are a good team
for a while. Yeah, they don't really be doing that much. So not much.
And they already do their coaching changes during the season last season?
Yeah. Joe Brady in here fully entrenched, phenomenal. But probably won't be much longer, to be fair, because someone's going to scoop him up this offseason probably. But we'll next offseason, I should say, we'll talk about that in a future situation. So again, nothing really to talk about coaching staff wise. Offensive moves, we'll talk about those first here because I think that they made the most, I would say, interesting move of all their moves was probably on offense. And I say interesting because I'm not sure what to think of it yet, so we'll talk about it. But they do lose Amari Cooper, who at that point really wasn't much of a loss. He didn't really do much for them, unfortunately. Mac Hollins, who was a fun role player for them now on the Rival Patriots, we talked about that earlier. Quentin Morris, who's kind of like a H-back type of thing for them, so that was interesting. They extend Josh Allen, who's still making less money per year than Dak Prescott, so Cowboys, good luck with that. They extend Khalil Shakir as well, and then this is the move I wanted to talk about most here because they didn't do too much in the draft. They did add Jackson Hawes, a blocking tight end, very good one at that, and then a developmental tackle in Chase Lunt. But Josh Palmer is kind of like their de facto wide receiver one now because Shakir is the slot guy who, like, technically their top target. You know what I mean? I just, like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that. Like, it's Josh Allen. It's going to work. It doesn't matter. Keon Coleman also hopefully will, like, develop and become this technical wide receiver one. But the fact that the receiving core currently is, like, Khalil Shakir, who's banged up but hopefully be ready for week one, Josh Palmer, whatever they get out of Keon Coleman, and then, like, I guess whichever receiver between, like, Elijah Moore and Kurt Samuel can, like, actually stay on the field and do anything. And then the tight ends, obviously, who also have their own issues. It feels like it's worse than it is, but it's because Josh Allen is the one running the show. So it's like it feels like it doesn't.
I have to say,
I would be more. Oh, sorry, you can go first.
I was gonna say you threw me through a loop there because that's not the move I thought you were going to be referencing. I thought you were going to talk about the James Cook extension, which is why I was giving the weird look.
No, I get that one because of what he's been able to do, and also it didn't end up costing them the however much money he wanted, which was never going to happen. So good for them.
Yeah, I mean it was still a pretty penny, but
$12 million for a running back of his caliber is good for sure. Yeah. But go ahead. What were you saying with that, Zach?
No, I was just confused. I completely didn't know about the Josh Palmer. I thought you were saying the one you had a problem with was the James Cook one. And
I don't even have a problem with Josh Palmer. I just find it interesting that that's the guy who ultimately ends up being the pick there. What did you think of that, Jake? Because I thought it was interesting.
I would feel worse about it if the Bills didn't have success with a similarly limited receiving core last year.
Right.
Because I know they got Amari Cooper halfway through the year, but I know they started the year with Coleman, Mac Hollins, and Shakir.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen's shown he can win with a random conglomerate of receivers, so I don't know that I would have went out and made Joshua Palmer my wide receiver or de facto wide receiver one, but
number one outside receiver.
Yeah, I don't look at it as pessimistic as some I think. I mean, I don't know. I'd like you to give Josh Allen a little more talent at receiver, but he has proven he can win with warm bodies out there. So I don't feel too bad about it.
Yeah, it's not even that Josh Palmer's like a bad player, but I view him as very much like not a sacrificial X, but like kind of closer to that type of receiver than he is like an actual impactful like outside receiver. And he's had his moments in the NFL. He's still a young player. He has over 2,200 career receiving yards. Like he's coming off 2 consecutive 500-ish yard seasons for the Chargers. But like the Chargers receiving core, especially last year, was not very good, and he wasn't even the number one in that one, right? So it's kind of like if that's your big addition to this group, like ultimately – with Josh Allen here, it probably doesn't matter that much. The style of play he used last year won him an MVP, first of all, and 2, made this one of the most like consistently successful offenses in the NFL, even if it isn't necessarily overly explosive anymore, because he is kind of turning down some of the just absolutely wackadoo plays that he likes to do. It did ultimately help the offense, right? And I think the rushing efficiency with him as a runner too, like it all works. But I do wonder, like, are we going to get into a game against a Chiefs team that has also had the same type of issues where unless Xavier Worthy and some of the other guys can start to pop off, like they also have trouble moving the ball effectively with big plays?
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to play the Chiefs game better than the Chiefs? Like that's kind of what it felt like they were doing last year. And we saw that wasn't enough in the playoffs, right?
I think you just have to hope that Keon Coleman takes a big step forward.
I think the key
looking
to
at this receiver core, I think that has to be. He has to for this to work out, I think.
Yeah, for it to be especially like a higher ceiling version of what it was last year, right? It could be the same, which was good enough to get them where they got, but for it to be better, it might take a breakout from him, probably, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the defensive moves here because there was definitely a little bit more movement here, and it needed to happen because the Bills' defense definitely took a little bit of a step back compared to years past this past year in certain ways. So they wanted to kind of reinvigorate this unit. So they lose interior defensive lineman Jordan Phillips, Quentin Jefferson as well in that mold. Von Miller's out the door after a tumultuous time with the Bills for sure. They lose edge rusher Dwayne Smoots as a backup. Rasul Douglas, who is currently, I still think, out there. So he could end up coming back to this team, which seems potentially likely with their first-round pick. We'll talk about in a second, still being out with an injury. So we'll see if that happens there. Kyrie Elam's out the door, which good for Kyrie Elam, I guess. I don't know. Larry Ogunjobi's brought in, who will need to serve an 8-game, I think it is, or 6-game suspension to start the year, which, whatever. Joey Bosa, certainly the biggest name brought in. Whether or not he's going to be the impact that they hope really just comes down to his health, which has been the issue with the Chargers. But when he's been out there, he's still a good player. Kind of an underrated pickup. Michael Hoyt, the pseudo edge rusher type guy, is one of the bigger body type edge rushers. Really good run defender and does offer a little bit as a pass rusher, so it'd be nice to have more in that group. Shaq Thompson, longtime Panthers linebacker, probably more of just a veteran presence than anything else at this point at his age and with the injuries, but still brought him in. Old friends Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson rejoined the secondary as depth players. We'll see what happens with those two. And then Derek Forrest brought over kind of a sneaky pickup. I'm surprised that he didn't play more for the Commanders last year. He's shown flashes when he's played, and that's what they brought in free agency. And then in the draft, a ton of new names. Maxwell Hairston, the corner out of Kentucky. I know that Dalton was a big fan of him. I was kind of a little bit lower on him, so we'll see with that. TJ Sanders, Bull Rush McIntyre, for those who are fans of Stock Exchange podcast. That's what they ended up nicknaming him, so that's definitely fun there. Edge Landon Jackson, definitely their type. Definitely kind of got that Greg Rousseau build of the 6'4" plus 270, like that type of build. So no surprises there. Deone Walker, who again, like, he certainly got the size profile, but let's see if he can actually play football. And they bring in a couple of DBs, Jordan Hancock and Dorian Strong, to round out their draft. I like a lot of these moves, guys. I do wonder, like, is this going to be enough to kind of get this defense back to where it needs to be to finally just, again, their goal, and we'll talk about expectations in a minute, but they've got to get over the hump, man. Like, you can't keep having these types of seasons and have this quarterback and not even get to a Super Bowl, right? Like, not just win, like, you want to win one, but not even get past these other guys in the AFC, particularly Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if the moves on defense going to be quite enough to do that, at least this year.
I mean, how many quarterbacks have we watched in the AFC during Brady's tenure? And it was just like, yeah, well, sorry, you're on Brady's watch. It is what it is. I mean, that does happen, and it sucks. But like, you really are hoping that these moves on defense go to help you shut down other offenses to get you there. Whether it will do that or not, I guess it's just hard to look and be like, oh, that's it. It's a shame that they can't get there when we are watching one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time play. Yeah. Like, it's just hard to be like, oh yeah, because you have to deal with him, which, and rightfully so, you have to deal with the greatest quarterback play that we've seen ever. So that's where you just hope that these defensive moves are going to be enough to really put you over the hump. And do they play this year in the regular season? They have to.
I don't remember if they do, but I could find out. But that's the last hurdle that this team has to make. They've been one of the best teams in the NFL for the past 3 or 4 years now. Josh Allen has fully formed into the kind of like almost kind of like godlike figure in the NFL at this point that many hoped he could be coming out of Wyoming. All that's happened. But until you can get past Mahomes, you're not even going to get a chance to break that curse for the Bills of those 4 Super Bowl losses, right? Like, that's the thing that this group is trying to accomplish. And every time they've had an opportunity to do that, something has kept them from doing it. It's rarely been Josh, to be honest. It's rarely been Allen's fault, if really ever, especially in the last 3 years. But this defense, with a defensive head coach, like, at some point you got to figure it out. Right, like, you've close enough quarterback play to Patrick Mahomes at this point, maybe even better in some ways at this point. It's got to come from the defensive side of the ball, in my opinion, if they want to flip the script there.
Well, and the first time we'll be able to find that out is Week 9 in Buffalo.
Hey, at home too. Got to make sure. And they've beaten this team in the regular season.
They've won there last year at home, but the problem is you have to have other teams to take down Kansas City as well, because that's really, if you think about it, in order to take down a Titan, you have to have multiple teams take them down as well, because you have to get them on the road.
Yeah, you got to get
that's the issue, is that you stick the Titans at home, or not Titans, the Chiefs at home all the time, and they're like just it's hard to do anything because they have that advantage and they're just primed and ready to go.
Yeah. So it's just until they can do that, like this, all the moves they made in defense, I like some of the stuff. Like, I do think some of it will certainly help. I still think the edge rush is like firmly mid. Like, I like Gregory Rousseau. Joey Bosa, is he really any better as a pass rusher than what they got out of Von Miller last year? Probably not. Miller was still very good in that regard. Now he's got more, first and second down ability, but do you want to play him on first and second down when he's going to probably get banged up and miss half the year if he does? Like, it's just, again, I think it's just really tough for them to really improve this defense a ton without using free agency money for it. But this team is kind of built in a way where they don't have a ton of money to throw around anymore, right? Like, they're kind of who they are, and they can make moves on the fringes. They can draft better. But again, Maxwell Harrison's probably not going to start the season as a starter, whether it's because of injury or just not playing right away. TJ Sanders is a really fun pass rusher type, but I don't know how much you can play him early on. Same thing with Deone Walker, who is a huge guy, but like really more of a pass rusher than anything else. I don't know how much those things are going to impact this year. And each year that passes and that you can't get over the hump, the harder it's going to be, because Josh Allen is eventually going to get a little bit older and a little bit slower. Like that's eventually going to start happening, especially with his play style if he wants to keep doing that. And right now, like the offensive line too, like how much longer does Deion Dawkins stay at the level he's at? Can Anderson keep playing well, or Spencer Brown? Sorry, Spencer Brown keep playing well at right tackle when he started off his career really slow. Like there's just a lot of things about this team that if they don't get over the hump soon, it might be time to kind of completely retool, and then you're throwing it all out to chance again that you can do this again.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's chance, but oh man, you go, Jake.
Okay, it's yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, the defense is only going to have 2 new starters, and one of them is Joey Bosa, who actually made the Pro Bowl last year. Didn't have that great of a year. Pro Bowl is kind of just a weird moniker we can give to players now. And then you have Tre'Davious White, who wasn't great last year. He was better once he went to Baltimore, but not great. My thoughts on the defensive moves are just like, like I don't know. You got to hope that this defense can contain Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's who this team is trying to build themselves to be, and I just don't know that they did enough this offseason. I do like some of the depth on the defensive line they got through the draft, but yeah, it's just I don't know. I don't think, but they are in a tough spot, like you said. I mean, they can't really throw around money since they're kind of far into this window of contention now. I mean, it's got to happen in these next couple of years, and I don't know that the defense is ready quite yet.
And I think honestly, what might end up having to happen. Oh, that was weird. What might end up needing to happen at this point is, and I don't want to say that he doesn't deserve it necessarily at this point, because like it's really hard to do what they're trying to do, which is unseat the Chiefs in the AFC. But they might need to make a move at head coach at some point, kind of in the same vein as like the Andy Reid situation to Philly, where we know he's a really good coach, but it might just not be what this team needs at this point. And like whether that means promoting Joe Brady to keep the offense intact long term, and then him going out there to try to find a defensive mind who can maybe do something more with this defense than McDermott's able to do at this point. You know, whatever that looks like, that might be the last straw they can pull at this point, or the last lever they can pull. And I don't know if they're willing to do that with the amount of success he's had. It just feels like it's not going to be the case. So if that's not going to be what they try to do, it does just come down to them doing enough on defense to give Allen the chance to win one of these games against Patrick Mahomes, because we've seen like he did everything someone possibly could in that barn burner game a few years ago where they lose in overtime. And they had 13 seconds left to get a stop, and they couldn't do it. And yes, this Chiefs team is not that same high-powered one, but we saw in this game, in the game last year, like they just are better at situational football than you, and so you cannot make it close. It has to be, you have to be able to beat them outright. And if you give them a chance, like they consistently do, they were probably going to beat you. So look what the Eagles had to do, right? Like they got out to a fast start and didn't let off the gas, and they never got close, right? Like it never got to the point where Mahomes could do his, Mahomes magic stuff. It just was too far away. So they might have to do something similar, and it's just going to be hard to do that with this offense that is very good but not very explosive.
Well, I still think you can still build the defense straw. But as you said, it's going to take either investing the money in free agency, or because of how high Josh Allen raises your floor and you're not going to be in the first half of the draft, you're going to have to make some, because that's the thing with the spot that they're at. They can get the cornerbacks, they can get the secondary pieces that are decently good and like worthy of that first round pick. But if you want the defensive linemen, you're going to have to make a move up into the
Yeah.
first part of the draft in order to do that. And are they willing to do that and use those things? And at this point, like we talked about with the window closing and getting smaller and smaller, if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? Because if you don't want to tear everything down, you might as well make that move to get that good defensive piece to give pressure. And because that's the glaring need on this team is who's your reliable defensive end, your outside linebacker, whatever, to get that consistent pressure and take
now it's
away.
really just Rousseau and maybe Bosa this year, right? But maybe.
And you don't really look at either of those names and you're like, yeah, that's who I want. Rush.
Yeah, like
Rush
a bona fide number one edge rusher. Like neither of them are that, especially Bosa at this point, right? Where it's just
like
he's
even as a Dolphins fan and how bad it is, I feel so much better knowing that it's Phillips.
When he's healthy, especially.
When he's healthy, than it being either Russo or I'm not saying that Russo hasn't gotten the better of the offensive line. That's not saying much, but like you want to have your second or top 5 pick defensive end to wreak havoc, and unless you're going to make that move, then what are you going to do? You're just going to sit in the almost really, really good spot and just flounder. So,
pretty much, yeah. Let's talk about the expectations of this team. I think I can speak for pretty much everyone in the NFL world. The expectation is get over the hump. You have
beat
to
the Chiefs.
Exactly, which is beating the Chiefs, right? Now, again, I'm not going to be the one to predict it. There's plenty of people who are trying to speak on the downfall of the Chiefs now that they got kind of pantsed in the Super Bowl. I'm not going to be the one to do that until they show me more reason to believe it than just that, because that Eagles team was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, that's what the Bills have to do. Unless they don't end up having to do it, which is very unlikely, that's what the season is going to be about, and what every season moving forward is going to be about until proven otherwise. Can you beat the Chiefs in the playoffs? And then even if you can, especially if it's not in the championship game, can you make it all the way to the Super Bowl? Because once you're in the game, the NFC does have some really good teams this year, including the Eagles and some others, but I think they have a puncher's chance against all of them if they get there. So that's got to be the expectation, I think.
Yeah, the floor is still extremely high. This isn't a team that is going to come close to bottoming out, I don't think, because I don't think you can do that with Allen and
not
Cook.
truly. No.
There's too many really good pieces on this team for this to be a team that really bottoms out. I do think that given a couple close games, they could drop a few, and you're looking at maybe a wild card spot with a sneaky team trying to, like, whether it be the Jets or the Patriots or the Miami has a good season, just sneaking out and getting over with like that 11 or 10 wins, and they drop a couple and you're looking at a 9-win season, but it's still a winning season. So like, that's like you said, you expect it to be the Super Bowl, but will they be able to get there? Did they do enough? And I don't necessarily feel like they did enough to overcome those situational moments to where the Chiefs are just so superior. And like, there's other teams in the AFC who we can be talking about that could also be challenging them to, like, even if it's not the Chiefs, okay, can you take down, the Ravens? Are you going to be able to consistently take them out every time when it was one catch away from you not even winning that game? So like, there's so many ifs that it's not even just the Chiefs at this point. It's even if you get there, can you hold off the other team that you weren't expecting? Because, not to throw you under the bus, Jake, but it was always funny when you would listen to the Raiders say, oh yeah, we're going to be the Chiefs stoppers. And why don't you be stoppers of the rest of the NFL first before you worry about the guy at the top?
Yeah. If you beat the Chiefs, that's really cool. But like, if you win 4 other games, I'm not really sure if it matters a whole lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. But this is literally the one team that we would look at to be, oh no, your whole goal in the offseason is to figure out how do you stop the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But you also can't sacrifice stopping the Chiefs at all costs, and that means that you open up an Achilles heel for somebody else. So it's going to be interesting to see how those like reasonings and like what those decisions look like and how they relate, and if that's going to cause other cracks in the armor for someone like the Ravens to take advantage of, or if Houston is popping off, someone like them to take advantage of because they went all in on going in on Patrick Mahomes, and now all of a sudden, no, Lamar Jackson is tearing y'all up.
Yeah. That's a good point. People talk about the Chiefs a lot with them because they keep losing to them. But if Mark Andrews doesn't drop that pass,
who knows what happens?
that game would be tied late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So They're certainly not the only contender, in the AFC, but I am going to use the Chiefs for this example. I've seen them lose to the Chiefs by getting blown out. I've seen them lose to the Chiefs after taking the lead with 13 seconds left. I've seen them lose to the Chiefs on a missed field goal in a home game. And I've seen them lose to the Chiefs by not getting a 4th and 1. And those are all in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So right now for the Bills, I expect them to do the same thing this year. And until I see them get over the hump, I just am not going to believe in it just because I've seen them lose. It would have been Bills like for them to lose that game to the Ravens last year.
Yeah.
I've seen them lose in heartbreaking ways in true Bills fashion so many times in the playoffs. So right now, I don't know if their defensive additions are enough. You hope that Keon Coleman takes a step forward this year, but for now, that's really the main hope in the receiver room. So I just don't know if it's enough right now for me to expect anything more than that.
Again, it's tough because if you look at it, right, so I'm pulling this up right now. So if you look at since Josh Allen joined the Bills in 2018, right, so they've played in, let's see, 1, 2, 4. They've played in, it looks like 11 playoff games, right? In those 11 playoff games, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses. Only 2 of them are not to the Chiefs. There's the Texans game in 2019, that weird Josh Allen game where he started to show promise in the regular season and then just absolutely
I remember him throwing the ball over his head.
Yeah, absolutely lost his marbles in the game and then lost. And then they lost to the Bengals in 2022, right? So those are only 2 losses they have with Josh Allen.
So he only has 5 playoff wins.
So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 playoff wins.
7. Oh, okay. I got
you. Mostly other wild card or
divisional.
No, they've been to any.
They've been to the conference championship once or twice, and both were losses to the Chiefs.
Okay.
So they've made it to the conference championship, haven't made it past it, and that was the same way last year. And again, they can beat the non-Chiefs teams most of the times in the playoffs and in the regular season. They can even beat the Chiefs in the regular season sometimes. They just can't beat the Chiefs in the postseason. Until they can do that at least once, they're probably not making it to the Super Bowl. That's just kind of how it goes, and that's what it comes down to. So we'll see if they can flip that around this year. Let's do win total range. This one I think is pretty simple for me, at least for sure. I'm going to put 10 as the floor. I don't think this team is capable of losing more than that unless it's a Josh Allen injury, in which case I can't really predict that. He's been so constantly there, battled through injuries. I don't think they're going to let Mitch Trubisky go out there unless Josh can't walk or throw the football at all, as they shouldn't. So I think that barring a major injury like that to Josh Allen, I think this team wins 10 games pretty easily. I really won't put the ceiling any higher than, or the floor any higher or lower than 10 higher than 10 for most teams, except one other team that we'll talk about at some point in the series. But 10, I think, is comfortable for them. And then I'll say 14 as the ceiling. I don't like to predict more than 14 wins for anyone, just because it's really hard to do. It's even with 17 games, it just doesn't happen a ton. But I do think they can repeat as, again, one of the best teams in the NFL in the regular season. Let's go to Zach for this one. Actually, I want to see his first here.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 9-13. Like I said earlier, I can see them dropping a couple of close ones to a couple teams here and there because something stupid happens or they make a dumb mistake, and then all of a sudden, like I said, you're sitting at 9 wins, possibly looking at a wild card or looking at something where it's like, oh man, the rest of the division was a little bit better than we thought. But I also don't see the reality where they're not the team that wins the AFC East and they're not dominating and it's 13 games and they're looking at the 2nd or 3rd seed and hoping they don't have a date with the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs.
Yeah. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah. Mine's pretty similar. I'm going to go 9-14. And I would say 14 just because their schedule isn't really too bad. I mean, looking at it, the only games I can pick that I could see them having a good chance of losing would be Ravens, maybe Chiefs, maybe the Texans, and then the Eagles. Other than that, I think they're going to be the favorite. And they could be the favorite
in a lot of those, yeah, still.
But I think this team could win 14 games. I would go 9. just in case a lot of things go wrong. Probably Josh Allen missing some time in that, but yeah, I don't think they win any less than that.
Fair enough. Yeah. And again, I think this is all about for the Bills, and like right now, I think some of the teams in this division are starting to show some signs of life. Especially, I think the Patriots have a chance to start to climb back up the rankings a little bit. But right now, the Bills still have a very firm stranglehold on this division, and while they still do, and while they still have that opportunity, I think that they really need to make good on it if they want to win a Super Bowl in this window with Josh Allen. So. See what happens with them next week at some point. Hopefully Tuesday, we'll be back here with another preview. Should be the NFC West next week, so we'll be touching on them. A lot of interesting things going on in the NFC West right now for sure. So definitely tune in for that. And then we're going to try to get to the AFC West in that same week. Not sure yet. We'll have to see what everyone's availability is, but look out for that as well. And if you guys do catch this and you want to check us out on YouTube, definitely check us out there. Subscribe, like, whole 9 yards. We need to get better at that. Not
hit
great
that subscribe button, ring that bell.
Yeah, let's do it, guys. No. Definitely check us.
Leave a comment, like
X as well. Yeah, definitely leave a comment. Definitely like to see those. Of course, we got one earlier from Zach. I think you know that person a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
My
So
girlfriend on her last day at Daytona Beach.
Nice. Thank you very much for that. But we will see you guys next time. And if you are a fan of any of these teams, I guess I hope it's the Bills.
I really hope you're not sharing my misery.
Yeah, maybe a Patriots fan because you have a lot of backlog
There's
of
some hope.
reasons too, and there's some hope there. Yeah, so and maybe the Jets. No, I'm not gonna say the Jets. Yeah, let's.
The Jets don't look nearly as bad as they have the past few years, but it's still not great.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. But that'll do it for us. See you guys next time.